I want to call to order the public safety meeting, special meeting for April 16th, today, that is, for Tuesday, April 16th. And with that, I will like to call a motion for the approval of minutes for the meeting of March 18th, 2024.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So with that, we'll move on to the public portion of this meeting. And the goal here is to address some of the issues which have come up with vehicle break-ins in the last few weeks and months, and specifically like a few incidents that have happened recently in the recent past. And our goal here as a committee today is to bring this conversation to the table with Chief Klett, who is here from the PD, and members of the public. So I would encourage the members of the public to use this forum for public comment to address their concerns or bring up their concerns, and then ask any questions if they have any questions, specific questions, so that the Chief Klett can address them in his presentation, which will be the next item on the agenda. So that's kind of like the thought process behind this. And if you have any, in addition to the questions or comments you have, if you have any suggestions, recommendations for the chief, please bring that up as well. I just want to remind everyone that you have 2 minutes for those public comments. So try to keep it as succinct as possible so that the chief can have the opportunity to respond to your comments and questions. So keeping that in mind, I will call anybody who would like to speak at this moment from the public. Also, please state your name and address for the record. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Muthukumar Gopalan. I live in 1800 Celestine. At least for past 2-3 weeks, it is, is it audible?
Yeah, it is audible. Can you bring it a little closer?
Closer?
Yes,
Okay.
please.
So 1800 is up on the news for wrong reasons. I did see yesterday, I was not able to attend the meeting yesterday, but I did take a look at the presentation yesterday. It was, thank you everybody for making the best effort, best foot forward. As a community, we want to thank every one of you, but also like to understand, you, Chief, covered, most of the aspects of, how the pursuit cannot be happening, what are the technology which is going to be used, and there are a couple of other technologies which is also going to be used, which cannot be publicly spoken because it has to be a little more confidential. We do have confidence in our PD, right? That's one message that we wanted to see. Also, Kerry Wood, where she did manage to get a grant for all the 43 victims of that incident. But at the same time, we want to understand, moving forward, this cannot be a practice, right? So how do we make sure, what are the other avenues, apart from what we spoke yesterday, is going to be our plan of action for making sure that we cannot eradicate these criminal activities, but how do we eliminate to a certain level where it is manageable? That is something that we want to understand from the chief of the PD. Thank you so much. Thanks, everyone.
So, thanks. Anybody else wish to come up here and speak for the record?
Good evening, everybody. My name is Victoria Danino. I live at the Concierge Apartments. Not my first choice, but it's where I'm at this point in time. March 17th, I was the victim of one of these arbitrary car break-ins. My damages so far up to $12,000, and I'm not done yet. I do have a covered parking space. I'm not parked in the general parking lot. We do have some lighting in the garage areas, but there's no lighting in the outdoor parking areas of the Concierge. There's no cameras at Concierge. The locked doors that they claim are locked in the lobbies are not locked. When I brought this to management's attention, they were shocked that any type of criminal activity happened in their parking lot, which surprises me. But nonetheless, I'm not here to blame anybody. I mean, it's a fact of life these days that crime occurs. However, I work at a hospital where I'm on call 24 hours a day, so I can be going out of my apartment at any time of the day or night. And my concern is the vehicle can be replaced. I cannot be. So if I had gone out at the time that these criminals were taking my tires and rims and smashing my windows and going through my car, what would they have done to me? How much jeopardy would I have been in? I don't know how I can force management to put in cameras or better lighting, and I'm certainly going to look to move when my lease is up, but they won't let me break the lease now, even though I fear for my personal safety. As I said, the car is arbitrary. I can get a new one or replace it. But what can I do more for myself other than, carrying a weapon 24 hours a day, which I'm not allowed to do on hospital property? So I'm at a loss as what a single girl does at 2 o'clock in the morning when she gets called into her job and has to respond. So if anybody has suggestions, I'd love to hear them.
Thank you for your comments. Anybody else would like to speak?
Alan Smith, 112 Old Main Street. I think a lot of the stuff has already been addressed, but I just had one question. It sounds really good that we had a vehicle actually like right near there, like 30 seconds away. That was the response time. I think that's like exactly what everybody would want. But my question is, and I think everybody now kind of understands the pursuit policy. Not pursuing a vehicle and not putting, pedestrians and residents at risk of getting run over by a car is obviously a lot better than, the alternative. And but the question is, was there an opportunity in this instance to intercede prior to the offenders either getting back in the car or taking off or whatever? I think that's probably the question that some people might have too, and maybe that's been answered elsewhere. But I believe last night we hadn't reviewed the video or something like that. So that would be the only question left there. But I think now all of this activity has done a lot to educate everybody ongoing. So we really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Anybody else wishes to speak at this time?
Teresa Recupero, Stephanie Place, 1800 Celestine. And my only thought, well, not my only thought, but my main thought is the fact that the police were right there with them, and the fact that they can't chase after them, it seems kind of pointless to me. It's kind of like having a doctor or an ambulance crew or something next to a dying person and they can't do anything. It doesn't make sense to me. But on the other hand, I do understand that people have been hurt in situations with the police involved, trying to get other criminals. I do understand that. But it just doesn't sit well with me. It's like, I don't know how the police feel. It's like, do you feel helpless when you're standing there and you can't do anything? Also, my other thought was, couldn't they have radioed to someone else to go to the other side on Marshall and catch them when they came out? Because then that's not private property. So, I just wasn't sure that everything that could have been done was done. So I have a question on that. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Anybody else from the public wishes to address?
Hi, Charlotte Takeda, 1800 Celestine. I don't know how to put this in words, but maybe the laws need to be changed regarding these juveniles. Something we put up there and hold the guardians or the parents or their family responsible for this, because these young kids are out and about at these hours, causing havoc. So I don't know where to start with this. How do we get the ball rolling on maybe changing some of the laws? And Maybe that'll scare some people into being more responsible as far as family goes. Just a thought.
Thank you for your comments. Anybody else from the public wish to address the committee?
Hi, this is Siwon from 43 Marshall, right next to Stephanie.
Can you please get
Yeah,
closer to
sorry,
the
I'm-
mic? Sorry about that, because it
Yeah.
otherwise it does not get into the record.
So actually, I'm glad that this got the attention and we can have some discussion and make it some changes. Because I had some like car vandalism 2021, and unfortunately at that time I thought it was just me, or just when I tried to fix my car, the car garage told me there were more. But I hoped it maybe if this kind of thing happened earlier, we might not have this one today. So hopefully this will be preventing the next ones. I'm glad that this is getting some attention.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Anybody else from the public wishes to address the committee? So, hearing none, I think I would move to the next item on the agenda, which is the update from the chief here from the PD, Chief Klett, if you want to like to address. And I don't know if you want to take the questions first, or you want to go through your information first and then address the questions as you can.
I mean, a lot of what we talked about last night covers a lot of the questions.
Sure.
But some of you weren't here, or maybe not heard last night's event. So why don't I read my letter to the public first, and then I can go over some of the statistics and stats that affect us and try to answer your questions the best I can. I'm going to come out and tell you now that I don't have all the answers for some of your questions. I can't promise you that we have a 100% effective rate, and that's disheartening, and I feel your pain for losing your property and the windows and this continued trend. But give me a minute to read through my statement, and we'll kind of move on as we go, and we'll see where the questions want to lead us.
Sure.
So shortly after the event at 1800, we certainly are aware of the magnitude of the event and how it affected many of our residents. And so we posted out to speak to you through our social media page. I'm going to read that passage to you now. Dear residents, as your chief, I write to address recent incidents that have understandably caused concern within our community. Public safety remains our utmost priority, and we are committed to keeping you informed and protected. We are aware of the recent break-ins and commercial burglary that occurred in our town. Such incidents not only impact individuals directly involved, but also evoke worries about public safety among our residents. It's during these times of concern that communication becomes crucial, and we want to assure you that we are actively working to address these issues. It is important to note that these crimes are often part of larger patterns, with individuals targeting multiple communities and what we believe to be crime sprees. For instance, in the case of the recent motor vehicle break-ins, 1800, several neighboring communities were also affected on that same evening. Numerous vehicles were vandalized on the same morning, likely by the same individuals. And additionally, our investigation suggests that the recent commercial burglary may be linked to a similar crime in another jurisdiction. We understand that incidents like these can create unease, and we want to reassure you that we are taking proactive measures to enhance public safety, working hard to disrupt the effort of these criminals. And that's really the important word here, is the criminals. Our officers are diligently investigating these matters, collaborating with other law enforcement agencies, and committed to increasing patrols in vulnerable areas, utilizing additional marked and unmarked patrols. I'd like to inform you that as part of our investigative efforts, our officers have identified active leads and are diligently working toward gathering additional information from potential evidence available to us. These leads have been developed through the use of the town's license plate reader system, information from other law enforcement agencies, as well as potential forensic evidence. These investigations are thorough and they're in-depth, and they require considerable time and effort, and we ask for your patience and cooperation as we continue our work. Furthermore, we encourage you to remain vigilant and report any suspicious activity immediately. Your cooperation and partnership play a vital role in efforts to prevent these and solve these types of crimes. Please rest assured that we are committed to keeping you informed about developments in these cases while respecting the integrity of our ongoing investigations. Transparency and communication are essential in building trust and ensuring safety of our community. Together, we can work towards a safer community for all. And that's kind of encapsulates why a lot of you are here tonight, because of your concern and unease. But what I pointed out last night, and I will again, is we are the police and have the guns and the cars, but you all and everyone at home listening, you all are part of that system. You are a part of our system to make these crimes stop and reduce and go away. And to the extent that that phone call that we received with the response within 30 seconds, I want you to know that our officer that evening was parked just up the road in the corner of Parsonage and Silas, keeping an eye on the commercial properties that have been targeted recently as well. So, you know, I have a lot of confidence in the fact that that officer identified we have a pattern, is picking a strategic location to park and be visible and try to deter crime. But we can't, you know, you got to give, I hate to give credit to criminals, but we do. They see our cars, they see them, they know we can't see behind buildings, and they're like, well, there he is. He's probably one guy in the corridor of the town. And they have lookouts, they have second cars, they communicate by phones and radios. They're sophisticated people. They would be millionaires and billionaires if they put their work towards something positive. But the point about giving you some reassurance is that I don't have the stats for our Century Hills resident. I can't see where you went. But what I did pull prior to last night's meeting was some stats about the number of checks, residential checks, and motor vehicle activity that we've conducted, our proactive work within the 1800 community, and I can certainly get it for Century Hills too. Having worked here for 24 years, I've sat in Century Hills and I knew people's schedules. I knew when they came home. I knew when they left. The lights on this apartment. I made a pretty large career working midnight, sitting up there alone, trying to prevent crime. And even being there on one end on the 300 building or down below, they still would find ways to commit crimes, even with a car in the direct vicinity. So to say that we can stop all crime, I can't make that promise to you. But what I can say is, when you look at the greater whole of a state, or the state of the region, we are not dealing with street crime. We are not dealing with on-site robberies. And yes, they can happen. But our crime tends to focus on these motor vehicle break-ins and thefts from motor vehicles. And they're horrible crimes and they disrupt your lives. But I want you to know, if they're targeting in their property crimes, not to downplay the type of crime, but know that we don't have these street robberies. We don't have these type of events, and they're very infrequent when they occur, and if they occur at all. They're targeting property. They're targeting items that they can either take money from or cash from, or take your car for another venture. But to give you some reassurance for the folks from 1800, from 2023 to the present, we have had 421 recorded residential checks of your complex, and it's probably equal to that or greater for Century Hills, to be honest with you, based on how large it is. Meaning that an officer is on location 421 times since 2023, which is effectively one time a night, making sure they're visible, making sure they're pushing the criminals away from your location. It might be for 15 minutes, it might be for 20 minutes, it might be for 5 minutes, depending on call volume. But what I'm trying to communicate with you is that we haven't forgotten about you. Now, in light of recent events, we've increased those checks, and we're going to continue to do that. But as also part of our enforcement efforts since 2023, there's been 563 motor vehicle stops simply in the corridor of the Celestine corridor, meaning that in Marquette's system, where we record all of our data, I can tell you with certainty that 563 motor vehicle stops occurred just in your vicinity. It's a little trickier to nail it down to time frames, but to give you some idea and some confidence, it's not an unforgotten area for our officers. They are there. They are doing their job, and they are vigilant in trying their best to deter these crimes. As an example, to talk about technology, the town has made a very vast investment in a license plate reader system. There are 51 cameras in about 36 separate locations in town, which has been a phenomenal tool for us both to deter crime and also solve crime. And I'm aware of no other community other than big cities that have this type of technology on the scale that we do for a 13.9 square mile town. Put me on the square miles, but you understand. All right. So since the deployment of the license plate reader system, we have had the register hits when it reads a license plate, and it has some sort of record we're curious to know about. And in this case, we focused for this presentation about stolen vehicles. There have been 98 stolen vehicle hits that have hit a camera, and we've been notified. And in that time, this is since July of last year, we have then tried come into the area to saturate the area with our patrol cars because we know of stolen cars in town. 39 times we have tried to stop those cars, and they have fled and left our town. And I see you shaking your head, and I know it's disheartening, but let me tell you, that's 39 times, 39 potential crimes that have been potentially avoided. Now, they might have been here to get gas, but the likelihood is of half of those 39 cars were here to do something bad. And because of that system, we were able to get ahead of that, be in the area, be visible, and off they go. Now, of the other 98, we're responding to every one of those hits on the camera. We just haven't located them, or they've seen us and they've left the area. So to give you some confidence, that system is giving us a tool that many other communities do not have, and giving us the power to be and respond essentially immediately to saturate a certain place of town to push these vehicles out of our community. And it is disheartening to know that we can't pursue them, and I can talk about that policy later, but the fact that they're leaving our community before committing a crime should, and I hope, give you some confidence that the town has provided us with the tools and the support that we need to be better and be stronger and be a better police department for you. As an example, to give you an idea of the nature and the state of affairs, that this is not a Rocky Hill problem, all right? And yes, 43 events are terrible. This incident began in other communities before it reached our borders. And the town next to us had over 100 break-ins without a single citizen calling. And then they left there and came to us. And one of our, we'll call him, my favorite citizen at the moment, for having, seeing something, saying something, and calling us and allowing a 30-second response to get this individual out of our community and at least make that attempt to make the apprehension. This is a statewide national problem. I made an example of last night. This right here is 169 Google searches separate for every town in the state of Connecticut. So starting with Avon and moving all the way down to Woodbridge, we just Googled the name of the town, followed by the word car break, and printed the first article we found, and this was the result of that search. And you can do this yourself. And this is just one article from every town. All the same trend, all the same pattern. In the last 12 days alone, statewide, there has been 31 stolen motor vehicles statewide. None in Rocky Hill, but 31 statewide. To give you an idea of the nature of crime throughout our states, not just Rocky Hill. And 43 car break-ins in our town is a very large spike. But ordinarily and normally looking at our stats, and we report to the committee on a monthly basis, and they hold me quite accountable for our stats and statistics. And we have run relatively, fair to say, flat, but we don't see huge spikes. And if we see a change, we adjust our tactics to that as best we can. To answer a couple of your questions, one of the questions was about penalties and changing laws. And we are not law changers. We are not policy makers. We enforce the laws in the town ordinances that our elected officials, both here in Hartford, make for us to enforce. There's legislation that is not in the best interest, I feel, that makes our job harder and at times limits our ability to make proactive. There's currently a bill that the mayor spoke about last night that's looking to reduce, a different bill, but there's a bill looking to reduce our ability to make proactive motor vehicle stops for secondary, like equipment violations. I do not support that bill. If you don't support bills like that, you follow through, you look at what the bills are coming through, and you speak to your council, you speak to your legislators, and or change your vote altogether for someone who will support stronger laws and stronger bills that help us. But we as police officers, we don't have a political affiliation. We don't talk about politics. We don't support a political party. We may disagree with you, but we enforce the laws that are there blindly and as fairly as we can. Victoria, you mentioned Cold Spring Road. I'd be happy to report back if you were to come back or request it. I can get the number of checks for you. As far as a citizen coming out in the night, I'll tell you, if you're uncomfortable or unsafe or see something, you can call us and we'd be happy to take a swing through the area if you have anything that makes you feel uncomfortable. I can't predict what you might see coming down the stairs, but if you have that feeling, you call us. We will come by if we're available to do that. I mean, that's what we do. For the 1800 folks, what's funny is what's gone long away, is anybody actually considered the days of the car alarms are gone. We used to have car alarms when we were kids in high school. They'd be going off in the wind and the rain, but I don't hear any car alarms going off anymore. And for the folks who live in those communities where you don't have enclosed garages, I live in an adjoining town. As a police officer going home for lunch, I lock my door and I close my garage. And then I do the same when I go. When I mow my lawn, I close my garage. I've had to make adjustments to the reality of what society is throwing at us. And in the town I live in, I have faith in that police department, but I know, like ours, they can't be everywhere all the time. So there is some personal responsibility we say lock our cars and take personal belongings out. That had no effect on 1800. This was just people going in either looking for something quick or looking to steal a car. I don't think this was just a vandalism. They were looking for specific items. Fortunately, they didn't steal a lot, but they caused a lot of damage in the process. But to consider something proactive you can do is look into buying a car alarm. I know it's money out of your pocket, but if someone touches your car and it goes off, they're going to take off the area if you had something like that. But what they know, the criminals know, is they pop and smash your window, and by not opening your door, that regular alarm that you used to, when you have lock one door, unlock the other, and you open your door, they don't open your doors. They jump in the window, so they don't create that alarm to go off. So I give you as an idea, again, we can tell you park in lighted places. Sure, I parked next to the light. Did that do anything in 1800? No. You could put a spotlight from the moon on that parking lot. It probably wouldn't have had an effect. All right? But as a community, as a group, to be vigilant and to report things that you see to us, and don't hesitate to pick up that phone. I hear a lot of times, and we go to a lot of crimes where the neighbors were outside and saw this car parked in a driveway 3 houses down. Meanwhile, the crime is occurring, and they're like, "Oh, I thought it was weird." Call us. You're not bothering us. We have some of the nicest dispatchers money can buy. They are great people. You're never going to bother them. You're not bothering us, and we'd much prefer you pick up the phone and call us. Let us come see you and pay a visit. We have a fine staff of folks who that's what they want to do. They want to help you, and you're at the start of that 911 call or that regular call, routine call. If you don't know the number, just call 911. It's okay. We're there for you for that purpose, and we want you to pick up the phone and call us. As far as I'm trying to look at some of the other responses here for you. I mean, to reduce now. The first gentleman who spoke, and I forgot your name, I'm sorry, to reduce this to a manageable level. Ultimately, what we're looking at, as I mentioned before, the overall statistics that we see is 4 to 6 types of car break-ins or thefts from cars with doors open per month. That's about an average based on our statistics. What we're seeing here is that spike, and we're looking at 2 individuals on one night that throws our statistics way off, but unfortunately affects 43 of our taxpayers in one instance. But overall, our pattern is not disturbing where it's so out of line or whack that we feel like we have to throw all hands on deck at it. In this case, with the 43, since that time, we have employed at least one unmarked patrol out there, and we are going to do that through overtime and reassignments through our staff, and that will continue to happen and to saturate these kind of areas. But I think I can't make that promise that it's not going to happen again. You're not going to get your car broken into again, particularly if it's not in a garage setting. And I live by that same thing. I don't have my car in a garage. So I've had to accept that. So I don't leave anything in there that I don't care to be removed or stolen. And I take that risk like many of you do as well. And it's an unfortunate state of affairs and time that we live in. But I want to give you the confidence to know that our officers are out there diligently patrolling, and they take it very personally when their districts are affected. Those squads take it personally, and they adjust their tactics accordingly. But to be in every place at every time, I said last night, we could have 200 officers. We are still not going to be everywhere all the time for you. But we ask with your help, by you calling us, letting us respond to those calls, and trying to push them out of the way. Have some confidence in the LPR technology that we're utilizing. I should mention that our investigators have, on your case, on 1800, as well as the commercial burglaries, We have members actively participating in the Hartford Auto Theft Task Force on a weekly basis. We've developed a lot of leads, a lot of collaboration with that group, which is made up of Hartford and area officers, where when these incidents happen, within a couple minutes of meetings the next day, we already have a fairly certain idea of who committed the crimes at 1800. Putting that case together, developing probable cause to make an arrest, and coming up with the evidence we need, that's an entirely different conversation. That's where I need you to be patient. Just know that we're trying our best to put these cases together. And if we do that, and if we're fortunate enough to make an arrest, it's now we turn that over to the judicial system to hold them accountable, and that's out of our hands. And I think that's some of the things that we see is that the penalties aren't strict enough. The criminals are repeating these behaviors because the penalties aren't strong enough. And again, we enforce the laws that are written. It's up to the court to hold the people accountable. But if you're finding that the laws aren't suiting your needs and are not strong enough, you have a voice, you have a vote, you have legislators, you have counselors to speak to express yourselves to those people who influence the votes down in Hartford. And, if you're looking at the bills, if you see things that you don't think support law enforcement, and there are some that are in there today that are working to remove some of our abilities to make those proactive stops, voice your opinion to those legislators who are on that bill and let them know how you feel. I don't like to get into the game of blame. I'm not blaming a party or a legislator. They work hard for us on both sides of the aisle. The only thing I can say is when you see a bill that doesn't support law enforcement and that's how you feel about it, to express yourself. And I don't want to make an opinion on those, and that's not my place to do that. But, your vote matters, your voice matters, and making contact with those folks who are making those decisions and pushing these bills down the line is helpful to them to hear from you. Essentially, you get the type of policing that the community wants. And right now, the way the laws are written, this is the type of policing that this state is allowing us to do for the fullest extent of the law, and it doesn't appear to be meeting your needs. You're here because you're concerned, and that's where you change things, is that down the street in Hartford. So I hope I've answered as many questions as I could in that short period of time. There was a question about tactics. I'm not going to comment about the tactics of my officers. To question an officer's response or how they approached, it's a dangerous conversation to have for folks whose lives are on the line, that if they go over the speed limit, they got to put their lights on to cover themselves under the emergency vehicle statute. So there's a lot of things that go into how an officer approaches a scene and how they do their job, for which is not really the place for that. I'm looking at my officers to be safe and do their job and come home. But I'm very proud of the 30-minute response that Officer Thomas had that night and being ready to go. I don't know if I can answer your question, but I'm going to pause now. I'll turn it back over. I don't know if he has a question. I'll turn it over to you.
Can you please come up to the microphone, and I will allow that, if that's okay with the committee.
I live at Stepney Place. After the last meeting we had there.
Sir, can you please state your name for the record?
My name's Gary Colbeth. I live at Stepney Place. After the last meeting we had there, I was talking to Carrie Wood, and she said that the judges don't take this break-in stuff seriously. And I took some notes on some newspaper articles. There was at least 12 cars at Goodwin Gardens in Beaver Brook, 43 cars in Rocky Hill at Stepney Place, 30 cars in Middletown North End, Liberty Street. So that's a total of 73 cars. And they went on to say that a guy had a 2008 Toyota and a 2010 Chevy Silverado. It cost him $600 to replace the windows. So if you divide that by 2, that's $300 times 73 cars is $21,900. So this isn't chump change anymore. So whatever we got to do to get these judges to discipline these people, we got to do it. I didn't call Kerry Wood yet with my figures. I've been doing my dang taxes. But if you want these notes, you can have them. But I'll call Kerry Woods maybe tomorrow. And so that's my piece.
Thank you so much for your comments. So, any questions from the committee for the chief?
Not a question so much as a comment. Thanks again for your information, Chief. And circling back to a theme that we touched on last night, I appreciate your making the point that while when a pursuit is called off, that doesn't mean that the case is over. I mean, you touched on the other efforts that the department makes to solve these crimes. Maybe you can't chase the person and get them in the heat of the moment, but you talked about gathering forensic evidence at the crime scene, reviewing the data on the license plate readers, and exchanging intelligence with other law enforcement agencies. I know that Raquel is part of that collaborative task force, for vehicle thefts and vehicle break-ins. And I think it's important for people not to lose heart over the do not pursue policy, thinking that once the bad guy gets away in the heat of the moment, that is clear sailing for them. And I know there have been a number of success stories, that type of follow-up work that you're talking about, and I think it's important for people to to recognize that and be assured that even the end of the pursuit is not the end of the case. So again, thanks for pointing that out. I think it's an important message for the public.
Thank you.
Councilor Bean.
Just thanks for last night's review of everything, as well as coming back tonight and more specifically answering a few questions here. Thank you. Please continue to do what you guys are doing and keep the efforts up.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I just have one question for you, Chief. Kind of in the same vein as one of the few questions here is, do you do a after-action report for after incidents like this internally, like in terms of process, right? So if everything was done in a way which was commensurate with what you expect from a response perspective. And when you do that, is that something you do immediately or you do it after some time?
An after action, it'd be an informal thing that's done on a shift basis. We are required by policy in major incidents, critical incidents, to do something like you're describing, where we meet with our staff and go over major critical incidents where we have multiple scenes and things like that. In a case like this, I can assure you that, the first thing they're doing with their squads is talking about the incident, talking about their response. Where were you? Where were you? Something I haven't mentioned before is that our cars do have stop sticks in all their trunks. Right? Is it all of them? We got there yet? It's pretty clear. We've made an effort to try to really bring them back. They had been off the road for a while, but we've made some investments in bringing them back in as well. So, we have tools. It's just trying to be there at the right time, the right place, under the policies that we have and restrictions through some of those policies. So I'm sure I can't promise you that the sergeant in charge of the shift did so, but I can tell you from my experience as a supervisor that would be something they'd be talking about after the event itself, but also at the next roll call to talk about the strategies for the next night and communicating with their division commander, the lieutenant, about strategies to change tactics or make an adjustment in our patrol efforts the subsequent nights following. So as far as an official meeting to call it that, I don't want to call it that, but just to pretend it didn't happen and just go about our business, no, that wouldn't be happening.
No, absolutely. So no, I just wanted to make sure that we cover that, because that was also kind of like a theme here, a little bit about the response and if it was appropriate and it was sufficient, right? So I just want to make sure and assure the public that, the PD looks at everything which they can look at after an incident like this and make sure that, all proper procedures are followed and things are done according to the law, right? And according to the extent of the law, they can do it. So I just want to make sure, and again, just echoing everything which other committee members said, thank you for everything you do, being out there. There are some of these constraints out there which I think are beyond your powers and sometimes beyond our powers here, from a town perspective, right? But what we can do is we can provide you tools. we can provide you personnel, which we have in the last 3-4 years, and I think we are doing everything we can from perspective of technology, right? And I think last night's meeting, you also mentioned Star Chase, which is also a GPS darting system, which you have been looking at. I don't think you mentioned it today, but in addition to the LPRs, you are looking at other technology solutions which might be out there, which might help you proactively do some of the policing you need to do, and with the constraints which are out there. So I just want to thank you and taking the time to come out here. And I want to thank the public here, obviously, for being here. I know everyone is busy and they have to take some time out of their busy day to come here. So I do appreciate it, you being here and making your voices heard, and more importantly, like being involved and being active in our community to make it better, because that's the only way we will make it better. Everything else, I think, is we can talk between ourselves and feel good about it. But I think the idea here is to like hear from you and take this further than we have with some proactive solutions within the constraints we are living in today, right? From a law perspective, right? What is out there. So again, thank you for coming out. This is not end of the conversation. After this call, like the chief is here, like, off the record, you can have a conversation if you want to. I'm sure Chief Klett will be happy to like talk to you. And again, thank you for coming out. So with that, I'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which we have only 4 minutes for. And what I'm thinking is, I see, should we, the question is really should we do this? Maybe you can have a statement and then we can take this next meeting, public safety meeting. Ray, what would you suggest?
Yeah, just as an introduction, we have here Town Attorney Rich Roberts.
If I could just interject, I would like to comment on this portion before you close it out.
Sure, absolutely. Go ahead.
So I just want to comment specifically on the statement that the judges are not taking these crimes seriously, just to give you a little background about that. So it really, before you get to court in the first instance, and I spent many, many years in the courts, right, you have to have your suspect, right? And if you don't apprehend someone, if you don't catch someone, arrest them, and then bring them to court, that's sort of one of the hurdles that we're faced with right now, is trying to be able to apprehend people. And right now we're seeing that there are a number of new laws that are being contemplated right now that sort of reduce that ability to apprehend suspects, right, and to make arrests. And then the other issue is the consequences that will deter this type of criminal behavior. And again, we talked about it last night, there's some new bills out there that look not necessarily to create any more consequences, right? So I think before anything comes before a judge, we have to look at, okay, what is the conduct, right? How are we going to catch these people who are committing this type of criminal conduct? And then what are the consequences once they get to court? And what tools do the prosecutors have to say to the court, look, I'm going to do this with this particular person. I may put them in a diversionary program, depending on their age. I may give them some fine, or it could get worse, right? You may put them in to trial and, perhaps they go to jail. But I think before we get to that, the judges are not doing their job. We really have to take a look at what are the existing laws and what are the new laws that are being proposed this year. And so when you have conversations, it's just to keep those things in mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So moving on to the next item, Mr. Town Manager, you have a thought.
Very quickly.
Yes.
I was asked at the last public safety meeting to see if we can get a legal opinion on whether or not we are able, as a municipality, to restrict the shooting of firearms in certain sections of town. So I sent a request for legal opinion out probably the week of the 26th or March 26th, around that point. And so you have a response in your package, and we have Town Attorney Rich Roberts here, maybe to comment on that, or if you have questions.
Yeah, so what I would suggest is, in the interest of time, if you can take, a few minutes, Rich, and if you can give us a summary of your opinion, and then we can follow this up in the next public safety meeting, if that is something which we'd like to do as a committee.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think the 30-second summary of it is that you have some ability to regulate firearms by ordinances. The areas that you're clearly preempted are hunting, other than on town property, and gun sales and transfers and that sort of thing. So, basically discharging of firearms other than in the context of hunting, you're not clearly preempted. One of the things that I can send to Ray, there are hyperlinks in the memo that was provided to you. I can make it easier by sending you copies of, I think it's 4 or 5 different ordinances, so you can see what other towns in the state have done. Just to kind of look at it and think, maybe is this something we'd like to do? I think the other thing that would be helpful in the meantime is that if you have specific questions or specific ideas that you would like me to vet out and be able to respond to at the next meeting, feed those back through Ray so that I can get them just, to basically make it as productive a meeting as possible.
Yeah, I think that will be fantastic. And I think from a perspective, what should we model it around, like the 4 or 5 towns, I would also like to know, if you have a preference in, which model you like as from a law perspective, right? And I think just having that opinion from you will be helpful as well. And then we will also close that feedback loop from the committee as well next time we meet. So any other thoughts on this from the committee before?
Yeah. No, I think you're on the money. I mean, it's like, what is the problem you're trying to solve? What is an enforceable way, if any, to do that? What are the existing laws and ordinances that might apply? And, if there are holes to fill in, how do we do it?
Sure. Madam Mayor, any questions for Mr. Robert? So I think, Ray, what we'll do is we'll as Mr. Roberts suggested, we can take this up in the next public safety meeting, and in the meantime, we can close that loop, the feedback, and so. All right. Thank you so much for coming out. I know we have another meeting after this at 7,
No,
so
I know.
I couldn't go
That's why I
any
was
further.
kind
but
of speed talking.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Roberts. So can I have a motion for adjournment?
Move to adjourn.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.